And welcome back everybody to this episode of New York State Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all of the sports. Ricky Keeler here with you for episode number 50. That is right, 50 episodes here on this great channel. Happy to have you aboard today. We have a great show for you, Ricky Keeler versus Billingsley. We're going to have some fun with that. We'll look at the Jets and Giants in terms of who are they going to cut this year. That's what has to be decided by 3 o'clock here, so if you're playing a meaningless preseason game, never like to see that, but we'll talk about that coming up. Aaron Judge trying to chase his own home run record as the Yankees get back on track. The Mets get a weird split out in San Diego, which is good, but they still end up losing ground in the wild card. They have big series coming up with crazy back. College football is back. We'll talk Syracuse, we'll talk Rutgers, we'll talk Army. We'll look ahead to all the work of college football going on this weekend. We'll talk Liberty bouncing back against Mercury. We will talk Red Bulls, NYCFC getting some ties this week. And the U.S. Open still going on in New York. A crazy night match last night involving a former U.S. Open champion. So much to dive into. We're not going to waste any time. We'll see it in just a minute. Of course, thank you once again for tuning in. Ricky Keeler here with you here on New York State Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Of course, to remind you, if you miss any portion of the show, you can go to the Spreaker, anywhere you get your podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, all that fun stuff. You can check that out. There's so much to dive in there. You can also go to iesportsradio.com/New York State Sports, where you can find all the shows, whether they be video, audio, whichever one you would like. Follow us on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok, at IE Sports Radio. You can follow the show on Twitter, at NYC Sports IE, or you can follow me on Twitter, or X, at Rickinator555. We're going to talk Jets and Giants in just a little bit. But before we do that, we're going to hear a brief word from our sponsors, Plant Jerky, Philly Needle Wax Seals, and we're 10 years into the station, so I'm sure you want to hear a little bit more about what we all do here on the network. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Sports Radio fans, be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at iSports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And thank you once again to our awesome sponsors, Planet Jerky, Seal the Deal Wax Seals, and of course this great network, IE Sports Radio, for all the support. Again, I'm looking for that great snack for football Sunday coming up both this week for some college football. I want to get some Planet Jerky, and then of course fall weddings and fun events. Seal the Deal Wax Seals is where you want to go. So let's talk Jets and Giants right out of the gate. Preseason action, the Snoopy Bowl, not eventful. Because, quite frankly, nobody played. The Jets get the win, 10-6, another ugly preseason game. They go 3-0 for what that's worth, but it's not what anybody wanted to see. I get people just get the preseason tickets with the regular season stuff. That's the third preseason game, which in normal years you'd have everybody play. But people aren't going to watch Tommy DeVito against Adrian Martinez. Like that doesn't do anything for anybody. They help the team and try to figure out these roster cuts, which they have to figure out in the next 4 hours. But overall, there's nothing really eventful, at least from any of these offenses. We're going to start with the Jets first. And it's probably if there was a notable thing, you look at a running back like Israel Abanikanda, 9 carries, 83 yards. He had a 45-yard touchdown in the second quarter, the only touchdown that was scored from either team. And it shows the Jets have good running back depth when you have Breece Hall. They drafted those Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, Isaiah Davis. Now you throw Abanikanda here in the mix. They have got a strong group of backs that can carry them through the year. Of course, they're going to need Breece Hall to stay healthy. But besides that, I think their running game is in good shape. Defensively, they had a couple guys play well. Takk McKinley, 4 tackles, 2.5 sacks. That defensive line is just so strong for this Jets team. It's going to carry them throughout the year. McKinley, of course, being one of those veteran signings this offseason that can make an impact on with Javon Kinlaw. Leonard Taylor had a sack and a half, a good game from him. Quantez Diggers has played very well, especially on special teams, and his ability to play in the secondary. The Jets have a lot of depth in that department. So defensively, I thought they did a good job. 8 sacks on Tommy DeVito, of course. A lot of those being second and third string offensive lines, but when this defensive line is absolutely loaded for the Jets, so you have to give them a lot of credit there. As I said, roster cuts down to 53, 4 o'clock Eastern. There's been more that's trickled out about the Giants than the Jets in particular, and we'll talk about the Giants in just a little bit. There's a lot of people I know from Jet practice trying to figure out if Jalen Key was Mr. Irrelevant, if he made the roster. That's some safety depth that the Jets definitely do have. But that'll be interesting to see what gets decided over the next few hours in terms of what happens there. But the big thing for the Jets, and what I'm still confused about this preseason, is the mystery of this offense. Like, what is this offense for the Jets in particular? Because we haven't seen it. Where Aaron Rodgers hasn't taken the field this preseason. Garrett Wilson hasn't seen it. Breece Hall hasn't seen it. Mike Williams is back on the practice field and getting some reps this week, which is a good sign. We've seen some of the offensive line, but it's mostly been in joint practices. And when the Jets head to San Francisco next Monday night, we're about 13 days away from that. What exactly is this team going into week 1? Nobody knows. At the same time, weeks 1 through 4 in a lot of cases are extension of the preseason. They are basically extended reps. It's 17 games. It's a long season. It may seem short because we only see teams play once a week, but it's time to figure out what this offense is. They have to figure out in the next couple of weeks what they're going to do to make this unit click right out of the chute. Because remember, week 1 against the Bills last year, 4 plays in, the offense completely changed. Now you have the situation where you have to figure out what this offense is. It's going to take time. So what I would say to Jet fans is be patient. Because what you see week 1 isn't going to be what you see week 10, week 11. If there are any bumps in the road, and it's not often you start on the road against the defending NFC champions in the San Francisco 49ers. It's a good litmus test. Good test to see where you are at. You'd rather start with a tough team than start against the tomato can. But nobody knows what this team is. Nobody knows what Aaron Rodgers is, which leads to our first superhero, supervillain theme this week. Here we have in all the shows on iSports Radio is Heroes, Villains Week. And I said Aaron Rodgers is Mysterio because he's a mystery both on the field and off the field, and it's a mystery of what he's going to be this year. Is he going to be the player that's won MVPs, that's been that elite player? Is he going to have a Tom Brady type of season that lifts this Jet team to heights they haven't seen in the last 15, 20 years? Or is it going to be just a player who's heading into his age 41 season that's not the guy that he once was? That ultimately is going to be a huge question with this Jet squad, and I don't really know how to answer that. Like, I'm not going out and going to pick Aaron Rodgers to win MVP this year. I think he can have a strong season. I think he can have a good season. Can he have a great season? I'm not so sure. There's a lot to be determined because going off of the 20 ACL, that's a big deal in of itself. How quick does he respond? Does he end up having any setbacks? Well, really, his season to me is going to come down to the offensive line. And we'll talk more about the Jet matchup next week. We're going to do a whole week 1 preview. Giants, Vikings, and Jets 49ers next week. But what this unit is, what Aaron Rodgers looks like week 1, as I said earlier, isn't going to be what he looks like week 9 and 10. So even if Rodgers goes off has a bad game, and he usually when he goes out to San Francisco, it's not great historically. When he was with Green Bay, the Packers tended to struggle out in San Francisco. Even though Rodgers is from the California area, so it's a really good homecoming for him. I wouldn't overreact if he does have a bad week 1 game. I think just if he can get through week 1 healthy, it's better than last year. Which is amazing. I saw someone put this today, the Jets are the favorites in the East, which that's the expectation they should have. So how Aaron Rodgers handles that is going to be interesting to watch throughout the course of the year. So let's talk to the Giants. They made some news today. Their cuts are almost done, which is actually pretty fast. You'll see some of the teams do this. They did make some wide receiver cuts today. Isaiah Hodgins, who was a big part of the team a couple of years ago when they pushed to the postseason, He doesn't make the roster. Allen Robinson doesn't make the roster, which isn't much of a surprise. I don't think fans had that much of an expectation for what Allen Robinson was going to be. He's not the guy that he was in Jacksonville when he played. When he had some good years out there. I mean, some other names to really keep an eye on. They have a lot of wide receiver depth now between adding Neighbors, Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt. There's a lot to determine, and a lot of those backup receiver spots are more special teams guys. Hodges doesn't really fit that, neither does Allen Robinson. So that makes sense on some level. They did also cut Jakob Johnson, who they signed, who I actually like that signing. I don't know if they get him on the practice squad. Remembering from his time with the Patriots winning a Super Bowl, I think he's been a good fit in that spot. So we'll see if they add him back. But the big thing for me for the Giants is they cut a lot of corners today. And I'm not talking like they took shortcuts. They actually cut corners. Darnay Holmes, who was their fourth-round pick in 2020, is off the roster. They also cut Trey Herndon. They've cut Breon Borders. They've cut Christian Holmes. And I think it's going to be, what is this Giants secondary week one? I don't think anybody knows. They're going to rely a lot on the pass rush. They're going to rely a lot on Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau to really get after Sam Darnold. Because right now, unless the Giants can go about and try to sign some of these veterans that are getting cut, which I think that's what they're ultimately going to do. They're going to have to try to find some veteran corners. They don't have to guarantee their contracts, and they can make maneuvers to do that because their secondary is a mess. I saw CBS Sports had a thing for a breakout player this year. Jason Pinnock could be that, former Jet, in the secondary. But when you got a team that's really built with young players in the back end of your defense, and you're going up against Justin Jefferson in week one, I don't really care who's the other quarterback. That to me is the bigger concern for the squad is how they're going to go about defending. So they've made those cuts there. Lawrence Cager was another interesting name. They got rid of at tight end. But they have Theo Johnson, the next Cager, though, has made some good signs. They also, another receiver, they got cut reportedly, Miles Boykin. That's another guy who could have played an impact, but Boykin, of course, you remember him from the time with the Ravens. He's had another couple other teams. No huge surprises, I don't think, at least right now. Again, there's so much to determine the next 3 hours. There's so much to determine after the fact, this Jet squad, or this Giant and Jet squad. So cuts will trickle in throughout the day. They'll add free agents, move free agents around, stuff like that. That's the craziness of roster cutting and roster manipulation, if you will. The question I ask, as we look at head to week one, now the preseason's in the book, is which team has the most to prove? And I think the obvious answer is the Giants. Brian Dable and Joe Shane, another year of uncertainty. Daniel Jones, of course, was a year of uncertainty. Add to the supervillains this week. I said Daniel Jones to me is the Riddler because I don't know what Daniel Jones is. I don't think the Giants know what Daniel Jones is. I think they're hoping that he has a strong year, but he's going to leave you confused at times as to why the Giants are going to move things around and trickle things in. Like there's a lot of complicated things with the Giants, and I think it's a winnable matchup against Minnesota. The Vikings, of course, without J.J. McCarthy, going to Sam Darnold back in his former home building. And they have a pretty easy slate the first couple of weeks, all things considering, Minnesota and Washington. Like, why can't you win those games? The Jets, at least, like San Francisco and Tennessee in week 2. So even if the Jets have an egg against San Francisco, I don't think people are going to overreact outside of some Jets fans into what this result is. I think the Giants really need a week 1 win. I think they really need to get some good momentum, positive vibes in the building. They had a rough year last year from the get-go with injuries. That's the game they should win. I don't have the line in front of me right now as to what that spread is for week 1. I would find that interesting. I can try to pull it up for you real quick and see if I can get it up. Right now it's Minnesota by 1, so it's on ESPN bet. So essentially a pick 'em. Just in their hand right now, 3.5 point underdog. So both New York teams underdogs in week 1, but I think the Giants have a much better chance to get a win, and they should get a win. Sorry, I'm not trying to disrespect the Vikings, but the Giants have to play with a sense of urgency in this game. I think they find a way. Checking us on the chat here on YouTube. Terrence, thanks for tuning in. Terrence Rodriguez, SoCal Sports, and Set 22 is good stuff. And Yukio, thank you so much. Again, 50 episodes. Wouldn't be here without all of you guys tune every week. We've gone through some changes. Thank you for sticking through with the show through those changes. As my life changes, so does the show, which has been interesting to say the least over the last couple of weeks. So just to remind you guys on that, next week we'll be doing the show this time Tuesday at noon, and then after week one we'll go Mondays at noon. So we're gonna react to week one. So we'll have a giant post game kind of thing for the ninth. I don't know what we'll do for the Jets yet because it's a Monday night game. Maybe I'll do like a Spreaker podcast kind of thing after that game just to give you a recap of what's going on as we look forward to week two and all things in store. So stay tuned, follow on the social media accounts. Yeah, we'll have some fun, of course, with baseball coming up with the Yankees and the Mets and their push toward the respective postseason. Speaking of the Yankees and Mets, that's what we're going to talk about next after this commercial break. We'll talk Aaron Judge. We'll talk the Mets out on the West Coast. So much to get into, but stay tuned. We'll talk baseball coming up next here on UFC Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct to you for all those sports. We'll see you in just a minute.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great. Here to give you what you want. Here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy white tea. We're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen B, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back here to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all those sports. We're here with you again to talk some baseball. And let's talk Yankees to start off. I mean, they have played much better over the last month and have kind of stabilized things and kind of calmed some of the short-term concerns. There are still long-term concerns with the team, especially if they make their push for the postseason. But you can't deny the fact, look, they're 18-9 in their last 27 games. Now, you could argue the schedule's been pretty easy, but after the disaster they played in the first game against Cleveland in 12 innings, they bounced back, took the next two. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton are right now clicking, which is a good sign for this team. They played the Rockies over the weekend. They took 2 out of 3 despite a rough start to Will Warren Saturday on Old Timers Day, quote unquote Old Timers Day, because they don't play a game anymore, which is ridiculous. But the Yankees are doing what they need to do, and they did that last night. Nestor Cortez was really good. Made one mistake. He hit a solo home run, but Aaron Judge made some great defensive plays, robbing a former Yankee prospect, Andres Chaparro, of his first major league home run, turned out into a double play. Look, the Yankees are out in DC. These games are winnable. As exciting as the Nationals' young talent is, with James Wood, Dylan Cruz made his debut yesterday, Jacob Young, they've got a lot of promising talent, especially in the minor leagues, the Nationals. Like, they're going to be a good team in the future. But for right now, this team the Yankees should beat. And they've got St. Louis this weekend at home, which we'll dive into a little bit later. Their schedule is very favorable. And right now, they've got a 2-game lead on the Orioles. Baltimore begins a 3-game series tonight in Los Angeles against the Dodgers. So if the Yankees can take care of their business and Baltimore loses 2 out of 3, they can extend the lead. So that's the key thing for the Yankees, is trying to extend this lead to where the series against the O's at the end of the year at home does not matter for the course of the division. Like, you've got an easy schedule that you can take advantage. And it starts with Aaron Judge, who right now is on a whole other planet. Like, right now, I would say to me, he is Captain America. He right now is doing things that we've never seen before. And he does them consistently. It's 2 home runs on Sunday against the Rockies. He's now up to 51 home runs on the year. His month of August has been absolutely insane. And now he's on pace to break his own single-season home run record in the American League. Do I think he'll do it? Now, 2 years ago, I didn't think he would, and he ended up doing it. I'd just be shocked the team still pitches this guy. I don't care if the Yankees are up 4-0 and they're down 4-0. Like, there is zero motivation to pitch to this man, who right now is on a whole other planet. In 22 games this month, he's hitting .416, 550 on base, 948 slugging, 12 home runs, 23 RBIs. He's walked 21 times. He's walked more than he struck out. And his OPS is almost 1.5. 1.500. It's 1.498 to be exact. He's doing. And it just begs the question. I know that Giancarlo Stanton's behind me. Even Austin Wells has done a good job hitting cleanup behind him. There is zero reason teams should pitch him, and they still did. And even last night, when he picks up his 1,000th career hit, which was a single to right field, every time he makes contact, he's going to get hit. That's just the way he's going. It was scary when he made the comment when on Friday that they asked him if he was locked in. He said, "I don't think I'm locked in yet." Like, that's the scary part of how great Aaron Judge is. He's going to be the MVP for the second time in the American League. As great as Bobby Witt's been for the Royals, as great as his own teammate has been in Juan Soto. I mean, Soto, I think, has been largely having the season he's had because he's hitting in front of Aaron Judge, because he's getting pitches to hit. Like, if I'm in the postseason, I'm walking both those guys. I'm not pitching any of them. So he needs 12 home runs in the last 30 games to break the record. I think he can get to 60 for sure. But it all determines on the other managers, how they go about that. If you look at the Yankees' schedule down the stretch, they don't have a lot of games against playoff caliber teams left. Where they have the Royals, Boston, Baltimore, I guess St. Louis, they're still alive in the wild card. Seattle. But there's not a lot of crazy. They still have Oakland, too. So the Yankees, I think Judge has a lot of favorable ballparks to get home runs in. So I won't rule anything out with this man. It's something we haven't seen since Barry Bonds. He has been that good. But time is going to be the question. On the pitching side, there are some concerns. Luis Gil went on the injured list with a back strain. I mean, I think that is somewhat of a cause for concern for this team. It sounds like he might only miss the minimal amount of time, but it begs the question, as the Yankees have some key rehabbers, Anthony Rizzo and Clark Schmidt, out for Somerset rehabbing. Is Luis Gil meant more for the bullpen or the rotation? I mean, Gil's been like, but is Gil better set for a bullpen role when the Yankees right now are looking to something of a consistency at the late end of these games, besides Luke Weaver, who's been good? Jake Cousins has been a revelation for this team in the bullpen. They're going to get Scott Efros back. They're going to get Ian Hamilton back at some point. Lou Trevino probably. So they're going to rework this pen because there's some questions. Mark Leiter continues to be terrible. Is Heel better set for that role, or is Clark Schmidt, who's had experience being a reliever in the postseason for the team, better for that role? We'll see how they build up Schmidt over this last month. But Will Warren right now is going what he's going to go through because he's a younger player. Like, this is only made a handful of major league starts. He's going to go through some awards, especially like he was against the Rockies on Saturday. It's not a surprise to me. He's Eric Holmes. Eric Cole against noted Yankee fan Patrick Corbin, and then Carlos Rodon against Mackenzie Gore on Wednesday night. And then Friday, the Yankees will face Eric Fetty and the St. Louis Cardinals at home. Again, these are winnable games for the Yankees, especially Corbin has got 12 losses. The only issue, though, is the Yankees tend to struggle against lefties. That's been, I think, their Achilles heel this year. Time will tell really on what the Yankees do against left-handers. That's going to be something they have to answer in the postseason as well as they could. And it'll be interesting if they get to September 1st and call up. When does Jason Dominguez actually get here? It's really interesting because this Yankee team could be different in October because of adding Dominguez into the mix once everything clears up with that. So they've got the offense rolling. Judge, Soto, and Stan have like 120 home runs between them. And if those three are clicking, it's tough to see the Yankees not getting the American League pennant. But they still have issues in the bullpen, as I said. Cortez pitching well these last couple times on the road. Yes, it's the White Sox and the Nationals, but it's a good sign that at least he's getting into form. And a crafty lefty can always help in the postseason, which is what Cortez is. Let's talk Mets. Mets get a split out in San Diego, which, again, if they told you this on last week, you'd be happy with it. But it's not really the happiness you were hoping for. Sunday, they had a 2-0 lead into the 8th inning. Jose Gleek made it one of them. And they have it right where they want it. They get Jose Busto in the game, and they're going to bridge Edwin Diaz. They're going to walk out of San Diego to the 3 out of 4. They were the dominant team in that series. I mean, they played extremely well for the bulk of the series. And then Jurickson Profar hits a game.
And I think at the same time, when you look at what this Met team is, it's somewhat of a cause for concern because you should have won that series. You should be able to take 3 out of 4 and roll it and go through it. But they didn't do that. Now, they did get a good performance from Francisco Lindor, who ended up winning NL Player of the Week, 3 home runs in these 7 games against Baltimore and San Diego. He has been what the Mets have been hoping for. And if Shohei Ohtani wasn't going to have 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in all likelihood, Lindor would have a good MVP case. You could argue he does because he plays every day and he plays in the field and Ohtani does not. And Lindor plays a really strong defensive shortstop. But when Ohtani is having this historic season, it's hard to think that Lindor can match that. But he's had a really good month of August, 10 home runs. He's been in the top 10 in the American National League in a lot of categories this month. Since the All-Star break, he's been a very good. And again, if he didn't have that bad April, he's probably an All-Star in the National League this year, which you could say the last couple of times. And if they're going to make the postseason, he's going to have to be the player that carries them. He's the leader of this team. So good accolades for him. Mets did have a concern this week. Paul Blackburn left to start Friday against San Diego with a hand injury. He's on the IL. The Mets already have no starting pitching depth as it is. Remember, Christian Scott is still currently on the injured list. Kodai Senga is out for the year. You're probably going to see Tyler McGill at some point, but they're running out of guys. They are running out of guys to throw in that rotation. And their bullpen, which already has a good amount of arms, is somewhat taxed. Is somewhat taxed from the standpoint of they're trying to figure out how to go about shuffling this rotation. Mendoza's going to have to lean on this bullpen a lot over the last month. He's going to have to make moves that maybe he wouldn't make in April and May, but he's going to have to get aggressive with it. I mean, Peterson's been electric. He was good again on Saturday. Quintana got a great start on Sunday. Maybe that carries him forward. Hopefully Blackburn isn't out for too long, but they need him back in the mix. They need him back in the worst way. Ralph, how are you, man? Thank you for the congratulations. Yet the Mets bullpen is going to be the problem for this last playoff spot. Mendoza mismanaging it all year. I would argue, I don't think he's mismanaging it, though. I would think they don't have a lot of guys you can rely on in that bullpen. I mean, you would have thought the bridge with Buto, who had been really good, and he made a mistake in the 8th inning the other day. I mean, that's not something that I blame the manager for. Edwin Diaz doesn't get a lot of work. He's pitching in a 2-2 tie, which again, you go with the old baseball adage, throw your closer on the road only when you're winning, but Mets are trying to get that to extras. You would argue go to Diaz in that situation. I mean, you're throwing the likes of Reed Garrett and Danny Young, Adam Ottavino, and is it really the manager? I think Mendoza's done a really good job this year. I think he's done a good job navigating the waters, getting the Mets to at least be in a position to contend for a playoff spot in September. That, to me, that was the goal for this year. I think everything else they do is house money, and at least they've shown they've got the guy that can at least lead through the rough waters that is New York. So I think that really what's hurt the Mets this year is a lack of rotation depth. They've taken chances on guys and it's worked, but they don't have much else back behind them. That's really what's been the wart that I think has exposed this team, and having to use the bullpen so much. That is going to hurt them. Not exactly mismanaging the bullpen itself. So the Mets are out in Arizona this week. They take on a Diamondback team that has been – San Diego was really hot. Arizona is probably hotter. They swept the Red Sox in Fenway over the weekend. They have been insanely good. Mets, though, were really good against Arizona last year. Played well in the desert, and then they've got the right guy on the mound tonight, 9:40 first pitch, so set your coffee accordingly for that one. And it's a good pitching matchup. Sean Manaea against Eduardo Rodriguez. So a couple of good pitchers in that one. Manaea going for his 10th win. He's been, I think, the Mets' best pitcher in the second half of the season. He's pitched like a number one kind of guy, and they need a number one kind of performance tonight. Wednesday, it's Luis Severino against Brandon Pfaadt. And then Thursday afternoon, Mets do not have a starter announced for that yet. We'll see if Mendoza names somebody eventually, but Ryan Nelson is going to go for Arizona. Jordan Montgomery got moved to the bullpen. It's the Diamondback team without Ketel Marte. But they keep finding ways to win. They're getting good performances from all around their lineup. Their rotation's been good. Torey Lovullo has got a really good team going here. If you're the Mets, your goal is to just get out of here not getting swept. Right now, they're 3 games behind the Braves for the third wild card spot. You've got to think Arizona and San Diego are going to, if they don't win the division, they're getting 2 of those wild cards. So it's really 1 spot left in the National League. Mets, as I said, 3 games behind. Now, to help their cause, they still have a series left with Atlanta. The Mets are 5-5 against the Braves this year. All the Mets have to do if they get a tie is to win 2 out of 3 against Atlanta toward the end of the year. They clinch the tiebreaker. There's no 163, and they wouldn't have to really be that extra game behind. That's going to help them. What's also going to help them this week is they play the White Sox this weekend. Yes, I know it's on the road and in Chicago, and yes, I know the White Sox took a game from the Yankees a month ago. No excuses. Mets have to sweep the White Sox. They have to. If they can take 2 out of 3 from Arizona, sweep the White Sox, go 5-1 on these next 6 games, that's going to go a long way to saving their season. Atlanta right now is in Minnesota. Braves offense was dominant last night, but that's still a tough series playing the Twins. And then Atlanta's got Philly on the road for 4. So when the Braves are playing the Phillies, which is a really tough opponent, you're playing the White Sox. Go win those games. You want to be a playoff team, win those games. They did okay with the split. I'm not going to kill them for the split in San Diego, and essentially going 4-3 against Baltimore and San Diego. On the surface, it's good. But they didn't gain any ground. They actually lost ground in the wild card. And right now being 3 back there, I would think unless San Francisco, St. Louis, or Chicago go on an insane run, it's really between the Mets and the Braves. This is the week you have to make up ground. Because, yes, you play Arizona, but Atlanta plays Minnesota. But while the Braves are in Philly, you're playing a cupcake team that's trying to break your franchise's loss record. Don't lose to the White Sox. I think that would be my main message to the New York Mets this week. Look, their offense is starting to find it. I think that's a big key. They had a good performance on Thursday, stretching out the lead so Diaz wouldn't have to pitch. I think that was a good sign. Mark Vientos is clicking, which is what they need at the top of that order. So all things considering, they're doing good things. Now they got to put it together. And putting it together against a red-hot team with the Diamondbacks is not going to be an easy task. But we'll see if they do. So a whole lot still going on. So let's take one more break. We'll come back. We'll talk some college football. Syracuse, Rutgers, and Army get underway this week. We'll talk Liberty. We'll talk NYCFC. A lot of sports to wrap up these last 15, 20 minutes or so. And that's all coming up next here on New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. We'll see it in just a minute.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter at any time. Be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. From we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU, we cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Wrapping up episode 50 here of New York State of Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all of the sports. Rick Keeler back here with you. And I love being part of the Tuesday lineup because there's just so much going on Tuesdays. You got the Yinzer Report with my man Ralph coming up at 5 o'clock, Show of the Land at 6 with Gen B. We've got, I think, Philly Sports Talk is tonight, Sin City Sports. So much going on here on the network on Tuesdays, so you want to check that out. But let us talk about some college football. Week 1 coming up this week. Of course, we had the big upset out in Ireland this past Saturday. Georgia Tech beating Florida State. It was a fun call by Joe Tessitore, by the way, on ESPN. That was a really fun ball game. That actually affects the first team we're going to talk about, and that's Syracuse. Syracuse plays Georgia Tech next week. So it's going to be an opportunity for the Orange to kind of make a statement in that first ACC game, especially watching Haynes King and what that Georgia Tech offense was going to do. But Kyle McCord's first game as Syracuse quarterback is this week. against Ohio. That is Saturday at 3:30 on the ACC network. And you look at this matchup. It's a game Syracuse obviously should win. Ohio picked to finish 5th in the MAC. There is a player you want to watch, though, in the Bobcats. That is Ricky Hunt Jr., who had 5 touchdowns in the Bahamas Bowl last year. But the Cuse have been really good in openers, 9-1 in their last 10. They've got a good running back in LaQuint Allen, over 1,000 rushing yards last year. I think Fran Brown has been one of those coaches you're interested to see the impact he can have in year one. This is a Syracuse team that has a good amount of talent. It has a favorable schedule to have a decent season. I would say 7-8 wins is a good goal for this squad. And the key is not looking ahead. Now, it's easier to not look ahead in week one but after watching Georgia Tech, Syracuse fans are probably excited for that home game in week 2, trying to make that initial statement. But take care of your business against Ohio. I think Syracuse is favored right now by at least 3 scores. So that's a game I think the Cuse should handle pretty comfortably in that one. And I'm interested to see how Kyle McCord looks. Remember, a lot of people remember him from Ohio State and not exactly handling that job very well when he got it. Now he's in Syracuse. There's nobody breathing over his shoulder to take that job. Let's see if he kind of plays with some loose reins, if you will, and kind of just lets the ball air out downfield. That would be what I'm looking for in this game. Rutgers, they are home to Howard Thursday night, 6 o'clock Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Big loss for Rutgers this week. Their top defensive player, Mohamed Touré, is out for the year. He tore his ACL for the 2nd time, and that is a big deal. That's one of their best defensive players, one of the better linebackers in the Big Ten. We'll see how Greg Schiano kind of prepares to not have one of his better pass rushers in the lineup. And this is a Howard team that last year played Northwestern and lost 23-20. Now, the score is closer than the game indicates. Howard was down 23-6 in the 4th quarter, scored a couple of touchdowns. But the Bison at least had played a Big Ten opponent in recent years. We'll see how this Rutgers offense looks with Ethan Kaliakmanis, common guy at running back. Can this Rutgers team show some explosiveness on offense? Yes, if they put up a ton of points at Howard, it's not the end-all, be-all. It's not going to show if this team is kind of taking next steps, if you will. But at least you want to see signs this offense is going in the right direction. So that's going to be one to monitor this week. And then finally, at least for the Division I teams, we're going to talk Army. Army is against Lehigh. That game is Friday night, 6 o'clock at West Point. CBS Sports Network has the call. Army had a 4-game win streak to end last year, and they take on a Lehigh team out of the Patriot League that went 2-9. And you have an Army team that can run the football and run at will against a Mountain Hawks team that doesn't really know how to defend the run. So I think the Black Knights are going to go out. They're going to run the ball like crazy. And I would expect Army to take this game and take it pretty comfortably. So all 3 FBS or Division 1A schools have favorable matchups this week. I think they'll all go 1-0. They have tougher matchups next week, at least in Syracuse's case with Georgia Tech. Army has their American debut next week on the road in Boca Raton against Florida Atlantic. Rutgers, I don't think – I'll pull it up real quick. I don't think Rutgers has a huge test next week in week 2. They are going to be at home against Akron. Akron takes on Ohio State this week. So we'll see if Akron actually puts up some points against the Buckeyes. So Rutgers won't see a test until I think mid-September when they take on Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. That's going to be a big game for them. So keep an eye on that. Some other local games to watch this week, because here at the network, we like to profile some of the smaller schools as well. I'm going to run down a couple of matchups. Colgate takes on Maine on the road on Friday. Fordham is at Bowling Green. Bowling Green, one of the lead contenders in the MAC. So we talk about Ohio playing Syracuse. Fordham goes on the road. The Long Island Sharks take on Albany. That's a fun local matchup. That's on Saturday. Stony Brook travels to Marshall. And then Wagner takes on Virginia Lynchburg on Saturday. So there's a couple of games that you're going to want to stay tuned for. We'll have more. A lot of other teams play toward their first games next week, at least in the smaller divisions. And then the Ivy League, which will be big with Columbia, Cornell, they don't start till about the end of September. So those will be some matchups that you're going to want to stay tuned for. Moving over to the WNBA, let's talk Liberty, who last night were on the road in Phoenix. They held the Mercury to 9 points in the first quarter, which was very impressive. And then the Mercury fought back tied the game at the half. And then New York outscores Phoenix 46-32 in the second half. Dominant defensive performance. Brianna Stewart was good, 21 points, 6 boards. Courtney Vandersloot with 16, one of her better offensive performances of the year. Sabrina Ionescu goes only 5 of 17 from the floor, but she puts up 13 and 5. And just a strong performance from this team, especially after what happened Saturday. Saturday, they had one of their lower games of the year in terms of point totals, as they lost 72-64 to Connecticut. And look, I'm not going to panic off one loss, especially when the Liberty are 26 and 5 on the season. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's a game that I'm going to be worried that the Liberty lost. Now, why is that? They'd beaten Connecticut 3 times this year. The Sun were extremely motivated and going to make that a physical game to show that we can actually beat this team. Because right now, Connecticut is the 2nd seed in the WNBA. The Liberty are the number 1 seed. That's a game that, especially Connecticut, getting Marina Mabry from Chicago. They got Mabry to hit threes and match the Liberty in terms of that. And Mabry did that. She had 2 threes, 15 points. She actually hit the only 2 3-pointers for the Sun in that game. So Liberty defensively were not bad to hold them 2 for 13. They out-rebounded them too. I think it's just the plays that they make down the stretch they weren't able to have. And Ionescu hasn't shot the ball well. She's 8 for 30 in the last 2 games. So she has not been clicking just yet. Brianna Stewart, though, has been a machine. She just turned 30 today, so happy birthday to Stewie. 15 points, 15 assists in that, 15 boards in that game on Saturday. Look, this Liberty team is complete. We've talked about it ad nauseum. You lose one game, it's okay. I mean, look, I don't know what the WNBA record for best record in a 40-game season, but with 9 games left, I mean, right now they should be the number 1 seed, and their schedule is pretty favorable the rest of the way. They do have a couple tough matchups, but they play the Sparks on Wednesday on the road back in LA. They're on the West Coast this week. They dominated the Sparks about 2 weeks ago, and then they have a home-and-home with the Storm. They play Seattle on August 30th. That's a 10 o'clock tip on Friday. Then next Thursday, they take on the Storm at home. September, they do play the Aces again, but they get them in Barclays. They get the Lynx at Barclays. So there's a couple tough teams. In terms of the standings right now and possible playoff matchups, the Liberty, if the season ended today, would play Chicago. I think they match up well with Chicago. Atlanta's a game back for that 8th seed, so maybe when they play the Dream to end the season, that could be a playoff preview. Indiana's starting to separate itself. They had a big win last night, so I'm not counting on Caitlin Clark playing the Liberty in round 1, but you never know. But right now, New York with a 3-game lead on Connecticut. They won the tiebreaker, and they've got a 3.5-game lead on the Lynx with 9 games to go. So barring something crazy where Sandy Brundel's club just goes on a losing streak, but they'll be fine. And you love what the Liberty players said after the Serena Ionescu said after the game. Like, that's a game, all right. We got knocked around a little bit. We've got to bounce back. And the fact that they were able to avoid it being a long losing streak and winning on the road on the West Coast, very good sign last night. NYCFC, they were taking on Chicago this week, and they had a good opportunity to get a win. They led 2-0 deep into the second half. And once again, like the Cincinnati game, they unraveled. They end up tying with the Chicago Fire 2-2. Not a good performance all around. And just want to see Nick Cushing's squad hold second half leads. That's really been the downfall of this group. They're not holding leads. They're not being consistent. That's something they want to work on. They've got Columbus, who just won Leagues Cup, coming up this week. Remember, they led 1-0 against Columbus and ended up going to penalties and losing in that matchup. So how does Cushing kind of manage the Storm and not have to take some of these top guys out in the second half to preserve leads? That'll be interesting. Red Bulls, well, they love to tie. Now, normally I like a good tie in my wardrobe, but I don't like a lot of ties in soccer. At the same time, they did get a point, but they ended up tying with Charlotte 1-1. They gave up an early penalty kick in the 13th minute, but Elias Manuel scored in the 37th minute to tie at 1. But you look at their last few results. They have had a tie in 6 of their last 7 games. Their only non-tie in that stretch since early July is the Cincinnati win on July 20th. Now, they are getting 1 point, which is big. They're now in 4th place, 3-point lead on NYCFC for that 4 spot. But if they could have got a couple of wins, they'd be in the 2 position. They're a point behind Columbus for 3rd. So they're getting results, but you kind of just want to see this team get some wins and feel good about itself a little bit. So Red Bulls this week are going to be taking on, let's pull that matchup up. They will be at home against Philadelphia. They've been really good at home. I think they'll get a win. They will lose Lewis Morgan in September as he goes to play for Scotland in the UEFA Nations qualifiers. But overall, a strong sign there for that group. And then finally, we'll talk U.S. Open, because I love talking about the U.S. Open on this show. Day 1 yesterday out in Flushing Meadows. Of course, day 2 underway today. Jannik Sinner is going to be in action this afternoon. Carlos Alcaraz is in action tonight. In the night session, Jesse Pegula is in the night session tonight as well against another American and Shelby Rogers. But a tough loss last night for Sloane Stephens. She gets to play on Ash. She was a former champion. She's up 6-love, 3-love in her match and ends up losing in 3 sets. And that's one that's really hard to get over if you're Sloane Stephens. The matchup she should have won, wasn't able to do that. Novak Djokovic, he won his match last night. He's now tied Roger Federer with 89 U.S. Open wins. He's trying to break the Grand Slam record. Iga Swiatek is on court right now, the number 1 seed on the women's side. She took the first set on Arthur Ashe. So a lot of good matchups coming up. I'm interested to see what this American men do. Frances Tiafoe, a 4-set win last night. Taylor Fritz in straight sets. And I think it benefits both Tiafoe and Fritz that they're playing not in Alcaraz and Sinner's draws. I mean, how does Jannik Sinner come out today against an American and Mikey McDonald? That'll be something to watch. Stefanos Tsitsipas, by the way, the 11th seed on the grandstand court, down a set to Kokkinakis from Australia. So that'll be something to monitor when we get off here, but we'll have more on the U.S. Open next week when it gets to the second week of the tournament. We'll get to kind of take an overview of the first week and see what happens with that. Some other superhero, supervillains I thought of over these last couple of minutes. I went Superman. I went Jalen Brunson. I mean, obviously, look, he's the man that loves to protect New York City. He, of course, took less money to stay in New York. I'm going to give him that Superman title. I don't know what Jalen Brunson's kryptonite is necessarily. Try to figure that out, but he would be the Superman for me. And the Hand, which I found is another super character, I went with Igor Shesterkin, who's arguably the best goalie in the NHL. So I think that would be a good candidate for that. Of course, all the other shows this week are going to have heroes, supervillains, all that fun stuff. Personally, I'm a Batman guy. That's my favorite superhero. I always grew up watching the 1960s Batmans with Adam West and things like that. I'm a huge fan of those shows. I was trying to think who would be the Joker in New York. And that was kind of a tough one for me. Joker, I think, would be defined as either a player with a lot of sense of humor, or it could be a player that's been a bust in this town. And I was trying to come up with one, and I'm trying to think who would be that role, and I'm thinking on the fly. That's where it's kind of making it tough for me. Maybe I'll have an answer on that next week. But a lot of these shows are going to have cool stuff. It's either teams or players. We chose to go the players route because I think it's just cooler to identify a player as a hero or a villain more so than a team. But a lot of fun stuff coming up on the network. So as we wrap up the show for today, of course, Giants and Jets making those preseason roster cuts. That's coming up by 4 o'clock Eastern for the next 3 hours. We'll see the 53-man rosters usually. Now, those will change between now and week 1, but how those rosters shape up. Because next week, we'll get you some big X's and O's breakdowns of the Giants and Vikings and the Jets and 49ers. Teams for the game. Who might win those games? Who are quote-unquote week 1 picks, if you will. But we haven't really been on during football season over these 50 episodes, so it'll be fun to kind of do football slate. How many home runs did Aaron Judge hit this week against Washington and St. Louis? The Breakers American League home run record for the Yankees try to extend the division league by 2 ahead of the Orioles in the AL East, best record in the American League. Can they find a way to separate themselves this week with an easier slate compared with the Orioles going out in Los Angeles? The Mets, big series out in Arizona tonight. Can Sean Manaea continue to be the ace? Or will the Mets have a rough 6 games and see them fall further and further behind the